Let's turn now to the story that's impossible to avoid at the moment, the election of Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party. We'll be finding out what it means for politics in the East Midlands in a moment, but first let's see where our region's Labour MPs stand after he appointed his shadow cabinet. Chris Leslie made a sharp exit. He resigned from his post as Shadow Chancellor within hours of Jeremy Corbyn being elected leader. He was followed by Chesterfield's Toby Perkins. He had been Shadow Minister for Small Business, but he'd backed Liz Kendall in the leadership campaign. She, meanwhile, has lost her role as Shadow Minister for Care and Older People and returns to the backbenches. The rest of the region's MPs who were in the Shadow Cabinet have remained, but have been shuffled around. We've already heard that Vernon Coker has moved from Defence to Northern Ireland. Gloria De Piero has gone from Women and Equalities to the newly formed role of Shadow Minister for Young People and Voter Registration. John Ashworth moves from Shadow Cabinet Office Minister to Shadow Minister without portfolio. And there's promotion for Lillian Greenwood, who's gone from looking after rail to take on the full brief of Shadow Transport Secretary. So a busy time in Westminster, but will Jeremy Corbyn be a vote winner or a vote loser here in the East Midlands marginal seats where the party lost thousands of voters in the last election? Labour's got a new leader, we've got a new political editor, Tony Rowe. Here's his first report for us.
In the heart of Derby North, the Conservative seat with the smallest majority, and the only seat in the East Midlands to change hands during the general election. To win again here, Labour need to understand why they lost. Was it because of trust in their management of the economy, or was it, as the result suggests, a rise in the UKIP vote? Chris Williamson, who lost the seat, believes he would have won with the kind of policies Jeremy Corbyn represents.
There were 3,800 people who voted UKIP. Many of them, I think, would have stuck with the Labour Party, and 1,618 people voted for the Green Party, and virtually all of them, I think, would have voted Labour. And bear in mind, I only lost by 41 votes. So I think, yes, the sort of agenda that Jeremy is setting out is precisely the sort of agenda, I think, that people expect the Labour Party to be putting forward.
Nottingham, where the penny dropped for the Corbyn camp that he could win.
Thank you.
People energised, the older, disillusioned electorate and the younger, hungry ones. There is an apathetic majority of young voters to tap into, and sharing the platform at the rally was Umar Kazmi, an 18-year-old University of Nottingham law student.
With policies like abolishing tuition fees, I think, to be honest, he's going to have a lot of support from young people, and they're going to crawl out the woodwork. We didn't realise that they were there, but they're going to come out, and I think we'll see an effective campaign with young people involved.
Hucknall, in the Sherwood constituency, a mining town. Not anymore. Tories were hanging on by a thread in 2010, but the seat didn't go back to Labour as expected.
Labour's not Labour anymore. OK, they've had a new leader, but that might make a difference. I don't think so. It's the policies, really.
I'll vote for Labour.
What do you think of Jeremy Corbyn?
We'll see how it goes.
To be honest, I'm not into politics at all. Don't really follow it at all. So.
What do you think of Jeremy Corbyn?
I don't even know him, to be honest.
Will the Conservatives hold the middle ground vacated by Labour, or will they move further to the right? In seats like this, the new Lib Dem leader is hoping they can nip into the gap.
In the last few days, we've seen this huge space open up for the Liberal Democrats. There needs to be a progressive, moderate party in British politics that will take on the Tories from a credible point of view.
Will the demonisation of the Labour leader as scruffy and unpatriotic drive people away? The Tories have got in early with a slogan they hope sticks.
This man could be Prime Minister. He is a serious threat to the security of the country, the security of the economy, and therefore the security of the livelihoods of my constituents.
If Jeremy Corbyn stays on until the next election, one thing is certain: there will be clear differences for voters to choose between.
So Vernon Coker, Jeremy Corbyn, vote winner or vote loser here in the East Midlands?
Well, I think potentially he's a vote winner. We lost a big election in May. We lost a lot of voters. And for us, it was about looking at what we do to inspire and excite people and bring them back to Labour. And that's the process that's started. We've got a broad base in the Shadow Cabinet, a whole range of opinion there, and we're now starting to look and see what we can do. But also at the same time as that, holding the government to account. We've just discussed the electrification of the Midland Main Line, paused by this government. So we've got a whole range of policies of which we're going to hold the government to account, as well as look at developing our own policies.
Did you think they sounded inspired in our film?
Well, he was only elected last Saturday, so I mean, but since last Saturday we've seen...
One woman didn't know him, one Labour supporter said, let's see how it goes.
Well, last Saturday was elected. Since last Saturday, we voted against the government with respect to tax credits, we voted against them with respect to the trade union bill, and we started to look at our positions elsewhere. I think that's a pretty impressive start, and it'll be, as I say, not only what we do, but it'll be about exposing the government to account for the things that they're doing and the austerity-led policies that they're pursuing.
Amanda Soloway, we heard from Chris Williamson there in our film. You took Derby North, obviously from him, but he reckons with Jeremy Corbyn in charge, Labour would have won.
Absolutely not. I mean, there's no, for a start, he was talking about the UKIP vote. There's absolutely no guarantee that they would have voted old Labour, and I certainly can't see that. The message that was coming out loud and clear to us in Derby North was that we were the only party that was going to be trusted with the economy, and that message I was delivering, that message was coming very, very clearly, and it was the message I was hearing on the doorstep as well, that people believed that we were the only credible party to look after the economy.
But it was only, a majority of just over 40, with all due respect. And if Labour had picked up the Green votes, for example, that could have cost you your seat.
Well, as I say, there's a Green vote there, but there is also the UKIP vote, and we really don't know. I don't think we can speculate on that in any case. The fact was that I got voted in on 41 votes, but albeit I am there, and we have a responsibility to continue doing all the good stuff that we've started.
Vernon, you've taken a seat in the shadow cabinet, but you left defence. Was that because you don't support Corbyn's stance on Trident and on NATO, or was it because you said that only Yvette Cooper could be trusted with national security?
Well, what I was keen to do was to ensure that there was a broad base in the shadow cabinet, and clearly with respect to Trident and with respect to NATO, I have got a different view, and I was very clear about that with the leader.
Well,
of course, because what the leader did was to give some of us reassurances about particular policy decisions that we've got. But where we're going to with all of this is a new type of politics. One of the reasons that people are fed up with politics, they're always saying that it's always the line to take. Everybody has to express the same view.
But you say you need reassurances. What sort of reassurances will you need?
Well, the reassurance to say if a vote came with respect to Trident, people like me who would vote in favour of the renewal of Trident would be able to do that without the position in the shadow cabinet being affected. But that's what I'm saying. It's a new type of doing things. It's a shaking it up. People I speak to in the public want politics to change. They want a new type of politics. And one of the things that Jeremy Corbyn offers is that new type of politics. The Conservatives have got the same problem, which is why, in my view, they lost a number of votes to UKIP. The whole political system needs shaking up. Exposed by UKIP, exposed by the SNP, and to a certain extent by the landslide victory of Jeremy Corbyn.
Has it shaken things up here, do you think, in the East Midlands? What's happening with the Labour Party leadership?
From my point of view, I actually think it's. I mean, one of the things you did hear Mark Spencer talking about earlier is we do need to consider the fact if Jeremy Corbyn were the Prime Minister, it could potentially be very dangerous for us from a point of view, from a defence point of view, but also from a point of view that actually the economy, we need to keep on going the way that we're going, and it has to stay that we pay it has to pay for work, and I genuinely am concerned for the people of Derby North and the rest of the country that if we go down the line of removing the austerity measures, of giving people, making it possible to actually not work and get more money, that cannot be the way forward.
Do you know, it's really interesting, this bit about Jeremy Corbyn will be dangerous for the country. We've never had a smaller army, never had a smaller air force, never had a smaller navy. Over the last few years, the armed forces of this country have been slashed under the last Conservative government and continuing under this government. And then you've got, Amanda, you turn around, the Conservative Party turns around and accuses us of actually undermining the defence of the country.
I mean, I think one of the key things, you talk about Trident as a nuclear deterrent. That is one of the things, that's the whole point. It is a deterrent, and we need to make sure that we have that deterrent. And I think even to consider, and I know you do share the same views on that.
What about the cuts to the army, though, which are directly
we've got 2% on defence.
What about the cuts to the army,
there's 2% on defence. The defence is still as strong as it ever is. I've been certainly meeting
soldiers.
The relevance is we have people that are needed. We are also also, as an example, we had, from a development point of view, some of that funds was used when the army went out to help with Ebola in Sierra Leone. So in actual fact, we have the defence budget that we still need.
There's
We still have active forces out there. We have the best deterrent that is possible, and we need to keep that.
Ships.
Yeah.
OK, we'll have to leave that there, but there's a warning that thousands more people in the East Midlands could die because of poor air quality. We reported in July that Nottingham and Derby could be among the last in the country to cut pollution to EU recommended levels. Well, now the government is proposing to allow local authorities to curb emissions by introducing clean air zones in cities and even restricting some diesel vehicles. But campaigners say local councils are being left to pick up the tab for tackling a national problem. Rob Pitton reports.
Traffic jams and congestion are more than a nuisance for drivers. The emissions from vehicles are the biggest source of air pollution, linked to thousands of deaths a year in the East Midlands, with diesel engines causing much of the problem. And now Nottingham and Derby have been named as 2 of the 6 cities in England which will struggle to hit targets for reducing air pollution.
According to the government's own scientists, over 50,000 people a year are dying early because of air pollution. Every year that goes by without us meeting these limits, thousands more people will die, thousands more people will be made seriously ill through illnesses like asthma, stroke, heart attacks.
The government says it's confident Nottingham and Derby will hit their targets for cutting pollution, and councils in both cities say things are improving quickly. They're tackling the problem with measures like electric buses, more cycle lanes, and in Nottingham, the new tram network.
The data is from 2013, I think is the first thing to say. We were halfway through building a new tram system, a new train station, we had roadworks on a ring road, our A453 was being rebuilt. We're fairly confident that if the data were collated now, we wouldn't be in that top 6.
The government is also confident the 2 cities will meet their targets, but Client Earth, a group of campaigning environmental lawyers which won a court battle against the government to force it to tackle air pollution, says more resources are needed.
We've got a huge amount of sympathy for cities like Derby and Nottingham, who at the same time as they're having their budgets cut, are being asked to solve this very difficult problem. What we want to see is national leadership. That's why we took the national government to court. That's why the Supreme Court ordered the national government to take action, but instead they've just passed the problem down to local authorities.
According to the government, air quality in our cities is improving, and it says cutting air pollution is a priority. But critics say without more money for councils, they'll struggle to meet their targets and thousands more will die.
Well, we're joined by Stephen Wibberley, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the British Lung Foundation. Stephen, thanks for coming in. Can you explain first how air pollution causes so many deaths?
Yes, as we heard on that clip, air pollution causes tens of thousands of premature deaths in the country every year. And the main problem, particularly in urban areas, is the fumes from vehicles, and particularly from diesel vehicles, that's cars, taxis and lorries. And you've got 2 key chemicals in those fumes. One is nitrogen dioxide, one is something called PM2.5, tiny little particles that come out in the fumes. And because they're so small, they get right down into the lungs, which will then damage the lungs and can cause things like lung cancer even, can lead to heart problems, and particularly can really aggravate the condition of people who already have long-term lung conditions.
Well, we heard, didn't we, in that film that Councillor Nick MacDonald from Nottingham says there are no plans to ban private diesel cars, and Derby has said the same thing. But should our councils consider doing that?
Well, councils clearly have one particular role, and there might be a case for the very old, very polluting vehicles to be banned from areas of high pollution. But I think the real point here is the role of government, and that's what's been completely lacking in this country. We need the commitment from national government to look at the tax regime, to look at how diesel cars are built and the fumes that they emit at the moment, and to improve things like active travel, to get more people walking on their bicycles and on public transport.
Okay, Amanda Soloway basically is saying that the government's not doing enough on this. This is a very serious issue. Are you not taking it seriously enough?
We are taking it seriously, and obviously, you know, these diseases are awful. There's no denying that. As an example, as you'll know, there's been 2 billion put for that, and I'm hoping that we'll be using that in Derby, because I know that it's a concern. But one of the things we've certainly been doing in Derby
across the whole country,
across the whole country, absolutely, and we're hoping to pull down from that. Well, we definitely will pull down from that part. But in terms of what we've been doing in Derby, we're doing lots of really positive things. As an example, we've got probably one of the best bike lanes in the country, and you can literally electric cycle around the whole of Derby. That's really crucial.
It is a bike-friendly city, obviously Derby is, but we're talking here, aren't we, about 50,000 deaths a year?
Absolutely, and I was just going to say, but we're not doing enough, and one of the things I think we should be doing is we should be looking at schemes like the car share scheme is one of the things that we should be doing. Also looking at what we do, maybe getting more people using our transport system. So I think there are things that we can be doing to help towards that.
The Environment Department says that the government has invested in green technology and also set up this fund to help local councils, but at the end of the day, you're still leaving those councils to sort this out, and they don't have to prioritise at the end of the day, do they?
That's one of the things that we can certainly do, is make sure that we do prioritise on that, and I know that's one of the things. But again, I come to Derby that it is very high on the agenda. That biking scheme is high on the agenda. Having a look at what we can do, the money that's been put into the car share scheme, again, high on the agenda.
And I think it's great that some local authorities are doing work like this, and we're completely in favour of things like better public transport, cycle lanes. But completely, but it goes back to the point of what's the role of national government, to take the leadership and to do the things that only national government can do. So to look at things like the taxes on diesel vehicles, to look at things like changing the way that diesel vehicles are tested, so the real world testing, so you can properly identify the damage that they're causing.
Vernon, is it time to take drastic action on this?
Well, I think clearly it needs to be a priority for everyone. I think the government needs to look at the resources that it makes available, and local authorities across the country will be having all sorts of transport schemes. But clearly there's a need for us to do more. The sorts of numbers of deaths that we're talking about is clearly very serious. I mean, in Nottingham, I think the tram system and many of the other things that they're doing around buses and cars and so on and so forth is really important. I think the other thing is to say is that this has to be done with people and with communities, right? And that's why sometimes when you talk about drastic action, I think that well, I think you have to be, careful about all these things. I mean, banning things and so on and so forth. In the end, it's almost counterproductive. You need to bring people with you. We need to change attitudes as well, and to work with people to get cycle lanes and buses used more than they are. And all of us should be challenged on that, including myself sometimes, to be honest.
I completely agree. We need to be working with people on this, which is why we're in favour of getting proper testing done on vehicles, diesel vehicles, so people can make their own decisions. The problem with testing at the moment, it's done by the manufacturers in artificial situations. It doesn't reflect cold vehicles stop starting at the moment. So getting better information out, getting information around, for example, pollution around schools, a really important issue for young children with developing lungs, how we can remove traffic pollution around schools. So I agree that getting information out is really important to help people make decisions, but there is also a role for government around legislation.
What do you say to government? How far should they be going on this? Should they be banning diesel cars?
No, it's not about banning diesel cars, but it is about looking at the tax scheme to make sure there isn't incentives for polluting diesel cars. It's about working with the manufacturers to see how we can make diesel cars less polluting. As I said, it's about proper testing, and it is about supporting the councils
and
to
maybe teaching us as drivers to learn how to drive those diesel cars so they don't make so many emissions.
Completely, not leaving them idling, yes.
There's all those sorts of ideas, and that's why I think sometimes, we talk, government needs to do this and local council needs to do that, but all of us need to take a responsibility as well and think about, as individual citizens, what we do as well as what the government and local authorities do as well.
And it certainly made me think, about can I car share more? I think that's one of the things that is certainly a way forward, publicising the opportunity to car share, having a think about getting on your back, that kind of thing. Absolutely vital that we do that.
Stephen Whibley, thank you very much indeed for coming into the studio.